table first, and then we'd love if all of you would introduce yourself quickly. So name and organization. If you're going to be speaking and you're on the agenda, we'll bypass you quickly and come back to you. So you can just say pass, and we'll get back to you in a second. All right, so I'm Margaret Anderson Kelleher. I chair the Governor's Broadband Task Force by appointment of the Governor. I also lead the Minnesota High Tech Association. I'm going to go to Dan on that.
Dana McKenzie, I head up the state's Office of Broadband.
Dick Schobert with Schobert's Incorporated, Beaver Falls, Minnesota. And I'd also like to take a minute to recognize Dana for being recognized as the Person of the Year, Broadband Hero. Broadband Hero of the Year. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Dick.
And she's one of ours in Minnesota.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to briefly, as long as you brought that up right now, really, as I talk with people about that acknowledgement, make it very clear that that's a team award for everyone who's working on this issue in Minnesota. It's a national organization recognizing everything. We all know how many people are pulling on the oars of this boat, and that's really what this is recognizing, and that goes everywhere from this task force to the governor to the legislators who are working on this to all of the organizations that are doing a piece of the puzzle. And so thank you for bringing that up, and thank you all for everyone else who's working on this together.
Bernadine Jocelyn, Blind Foundation from Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
I'm Steve Lusader with the Communication Workers of America in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Diane Wells with the Office of Broadband.
David Talbot, Office of Broadband. Jordy Rice, Tri-County Commissioner.
Hannah Buckland, Beach Lake Tribal College.
Homeworks, AT&T, Minnesota.
Shannon Heim, I'm a rural broadband attorney at Moss and Rennet.
Maureen Neidecker, I'm the Director of Telehealth for Essentia Health.
And really our host for today.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
welcome.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go. Ann, will you start us off? You've been through this before.
Sure, Ann Tracy, and I write with Blended on Broadband.
Bree Mackey, I'm Senator Franken's Southern Field Representative, but here today because I also represent broadband and telecommunications for the state.
Thank you.
Senator Tony Laurie, who represent this area in the Minnesota Senate.
We'll keep going back then.
Michael Hendricks, Administrator here of Essentia Sandstone.
Jennifer Bowser, RN. I'm the stroke coordinator, and I'm going to speak later in the meeting also.
Erica Miles, I'm ED doc here and the Director of ED and EMS. I'll talk later. So.
Heather O'Brien, Director of Nursing for Essentia.
Michelle Ledwick, Nurse Manager, Essentia.
Mary Beth Kester, IT and Imaging Manager for Essentia.
I'm Fred Underwood. I'm the IT Director for Fond du Lac Band.
Familiar to many of us because Fred served on the first broadband task force.
Myrna Nelson, I'm from the North Pine Area Hospital Board.
Fran Levings, and I'm from the same board.
Linda Kwasnicka from the hospital board.
Sandy Hansen, just about to talk.
All right, great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. We're just going to do a quick couple of items of business. So approval of our minutes from someone who attended the meeting in Rock County and has reviewed them.
Madam Chair, so moved.
All right, second. Oh, we got a lot of that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved as written. Just want to thank Jody again for hosting us. It was an outstanding meeting in Rock County. It was really terrific, so thank you. Is there any public comment by anyone who is, and I'll just take a show of hands right now because we can either do public comment right now or a little bit later, but anyone who's not on the agenda who wants to say something, I'm going to call on someone in a second who's not on the agenda, but all right, just getting a feel for that. I would like Senator Laurie to say just a couple of words about being here, and thank you for being here, and thank you for your support of this issue over the years.
Absolutely. Been a strong supporter, understand greatly the needs of rural Minnesota residents for greater internet access speeds. Broadband, is one of the keys to unlocking the vitality of our regions. And welcome to the new Essentia and Hospital Board facility here in Sandstone. This facility was a long time in the making. A lot of hurdles jumped over collectively. Luckily, one of them wasn't really broadband. I mean, we're right on the I-35 corridor, and so there's a pretty good thoroughfare. You guys know well, you get a little further away from the corridor here, and things get pretty dicey. But of course, today it looks like you're going to see, what the potential is when you're on that corridor with the access to the really high speeds and how much benefit it brings to, particularly medical fields and whatnot. But glad to be here and just hear some of the morning sessions. I'm going to stick with you through noon, through lunch, and then I'll have to take off. But welcome to the region, and thanks for getting out and touring the state and doing the work that you do. I mean, we have a lot of work left to do in this arena, and I look forward to being a partner for as long as this region will put up with me.
We should know Senator Weber joined us briefly down in Rock County, so that's always good to know where your colleagues are interested as well. And thank you for being here, and thanks for your leadership on the issue. It would be, I think it's just great that we're here. So Maureen, thank you, and I know that there'll be a lot of thank yous, but this is a packed agenda. And one of the reasons that we did want to come here and focus so much on healthcare and kind of stage setting is that earlier in this year, when we heard from a group of legislators that we always have come in and talk about, how do we keep broadband in front of the legislature and relevant, and we're the governor's broadband task force, but I want to be clear, when we write our report, we write it to the governor and legislators and other policymakers. So we write it with kind of a broad lens on what can be done on this issue. We take it out to our federal representatives as well in DC and share it with them. That they said, focus on healthcare, because we see that healthcare is a key linkage for our constituents, and learning more and you being able to use this report to tell the story of how healthcare and broadband can be utilized is really, really important here. So that's why we're here today, and that's why it's so important to all of us to be here. All right, so we have, and we'll probably be able to catch up our time a little bit. We're usually pretty good at this, but a welcome by Mike Hendricks, who is your medical center administrator. So would you please come up and say a few words?
Want to welcome you all. Again, Michael Hendricks. We're proud that you're here. Maureen, thank you for arranging. We're proud of Maureen,
Yes.
as you all know.
Yeah.
Outstanding leader, long-standing in telemedicine, telehealth. And so we get to see and benefit from much of that here. And so welcome. We're sorry that Google Maps is not listening to us yet. So there's a road out here they don't recognize. So you all got here. We're grateful for that. We're quite worried about that. And frankly, when folks are traveling the area, we're still trying to get them, so when they look up, I need an emergency room, they're kind of going the wrong spot. So I hope the blue signs are going up, and it's getting a little
The
bit.
billboard was helpful too a little bit.
Good, good. Yeah, and then, if you're on the freeway, that helps. But anyways, welcome. Proud of the group we have, the work that's underway. We just, as I came, I've been involved in this community, in this region for now 20 years. And came back in 2011 to work with the local hospital district board, who is working with Essentia and other providers to plan facilities, and voila. So we've been here 2 months, 2 days.
Wow.
So welcome. It's a
the
good
new
test.
smell is really new.
Yeah, it's like a leather car, yes. So hopefully, we're very, grateful for where we ended up through the planning process as Essentia Health, as we work with the local hospital district, with Gateway Clinic, with the city of Sandstone. This was an abandoned airport along I-35. And so as we did site planning with architects and the community leaders, there was a lot involved to end up where we ended up here. The city went to the state for bonding for 2 different years. We got a nice bridge while the Department of Transportation telecommunication uses culverts, and so does the railroad. We had to use this nice bridge. This ended up being beautiful, but it was kind of pricey. But we got her done. We're glad you're here. For the city, it opens up another 160 acres of developable land right along Interstate I-35. There's railroad tracks right close by, and a number of things that we see as being a little key that now we opened a lock of additional development right in between Duluth and the metro. So welcome. As I say, this is a partnership effort. We've got Gateway Clinic coming in just across the hallway here, Thrifty White Pharmacy. So it's almost like a medical mall. And our hospital district folks are the landlord. And so that's the kind of collaboration that occurred at Sandstone and the vision that you see unfolding now. So again, welcome. Glad you're here, and I look forward to talking and visiting throughout the day with you.
Are you back on our agenda or no?
You'll be
Yeah,
part of
we'll
the.
Yes,
you'll be
good,
part of the
okay,
tour.
then I'll have a couple questions for you
Yes.
then.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, excellent. All right. Sure.
Dr. Henson, you come
You know
up
what,
here?
I-
Are you
Maybe I'll
okay
be
there?
here. I realize now that there's a screen right there and I can kind of
Okay.
scan and
Sure.
see everybody from
Sure,
here.
sure. So if we need anyone from this side to come around here, we do have a spot over here, if you're more comfortable, from our broadband task force. If this feels better, you certainly are welcome, or flip around to the other side of the table to look. Whatever you wanna do.
Yeah.
But I just wanna be cognizant that this presentation is about 45 minutes long, so, wherever you wanna be comfortable and watching. You can sit at the witness table too. I think it's just a different types of pipes and wiring about neurology and things. Different types and wiring, neurology. I think you can handle it,
Just like putting a garden.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we're very happy to have Dr. Sandra Hansen with us today. And Dr. Hansen is the medical director of the largest telestroke program in Minnesota. And it is one of the only stroke programs that's been in effect for quite a while. And,
2006.
Since 2006. And so we're going to tell you some stories about working with broadband. And this is our first story. And we'll have another story about the hospital and the health system. And we'll also talk about accessing care. And we'll talk a little bit about opioid addiction and congestive heart failure, and why these very important diseases are being helped with broadband. Hi, come on. Denise,
Now watch these screens.
we're just introducing Dr. Sandra Hansen, and then we'll come back probably. Dr. Hansen, I'll turn it over to you then at this point.
Well, we're going to start with a human story, and then you'll have to listen to a neurologist after that talking about my craft. So we'll go ahead and play the video, and that'll kind of give you the lay of the land, what we're talking about.
29th of June, we met for the first time face to face at Perkins and Marcel. I told her I was going to kiss her and ask her to marry me, and I said, you want that to happen either out of the car, and she said, out of the car. So, and 5 days later, we were in Johnstown, Ohio, on the 4th of July, getting married. It's been fantastic ever since.
It just really felt like God was in us all the way.
There's no doubt in our mind that he was also in this deal that just happened. Because it was unreal. I was standing by the bed, kind of facing her. She was laying on the other side, and I felt myself falling. I called her. She came over and tried to get me up, and she couldn't.
His speech was slurred, and his mouth was kind of hanging it's a stroke, and I told him I'm gonna call 911. I thought, oh, how awful for him, and I began to pray.
He arrived about an hour after symptoms had started. And within 10 minutes, they were calling our service and asking us to connect up and join into the stroke code process that was happening in the emergency room.
The nurse said to me, he's had a massive stroke on the right side of his brain. And she said, but we have an expert here that's helping us. And I looked around and I didn't see anybody that looked like an expert. On the wall. And it was Dr. Hanson from Alina. I thought, gee, this is sci-fi.
Telemedicine is basically a video audio connection from one site to another, oftentimes to offer subspecialty kinds of care in more remote settings where they don't have that opportunity, where we have very little time. You can't wait for transfer to a metropolitan site or a larger hospital where the expertise is situated. Even at my own hospital here at United, we will video into our own ER to run a stroke code in order that we can be in there within 5 minutes and be part of the decision making and make that decision as rapidly as we can. Our goal is to be able to offer that treatment to the patient within an hour from arriving to the emergency room. Every 15 minutes is a 5% relative risk reduction in mortality. Just saving 15 minutes is like adding another treatment on top of what we're giving.
She was directing the nurse, and the doctor, there was a doctor there, and she was telling her things to do.
And I can take my own history, talk to the patient, and be able to connect with patterns of symptoms that are typical of stroke that a neurologist is good at discovering. And I'm going to have you smile, make a big smile, looking for the symmetry on his face on either side. Raise your eyebrows up. Same thing there. And then look all the way to the right and look all the way to the left, watching eye movements to make sure the eyes are moving together. There are some subtleties that being able to touch a patient and feel the muscle strength and tone that I can't get, but I make substitutions for that in what I can observe.
She asked me how I was, and I don't remember what I said, but
I can tell you that we've worked with other hospitals where we had only a telephone conversation in order to make these decisions. And the decisions are not nearly as accurate. Same individuals on either side of the camera, same ER docs on that side and me on the other side. And I will be making much better decisions when I can have a video image and take my own history.
And she said, I think we better air flooding done.
The IVTPA, when it's a large artery, is not always successful. So we have in the back pocket a second level of treatment that we can offer, but we couldn't offer it at the hospital that he was at.
So they called a helicopter. The helicopter came right away. Everything was just like clockwork.
He arrived to us about 2 hours later. We were able to take him immediately to our angiogram suite. Our interventional neuroradiologists at our institution perform this procedure where they go in a large groin artery with a catheter, a tube, and thread it up to the carotid circulation or the posterior circulation of the brain. He received the penumbra device, which is an aspiration type of catheter system that basically sucks the clot into the tubing.
on Tuesday, they took me in for an MRA and found nothing. So it was a huge success.
That of the type he was having, there's maybe 20 to 30% mortality.
It not only gave me back my husband's life, but I gave him back my husband so we could continue on as if the stroke had never happened.
We just take every day as a gift from God.
it was a miracle.
We switch to the PowerPoint.
There's a picture of Duluth there, right?
Yeah. It pretty much tells the story. I think the rest of this is going to be frosting on the cake. But so I let's just kind of get things going here. I'm going to just start with talking a little bit about the problem of stroke and why it's really suited to the use of telemedicine and for broadband in this instance. So. Oh, okay. Sorry.
See, Dr. Hanson, I think we'll ask you to stand.
Okay.
Yeah, stay, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Since we've got two classroom things going here. Now, Dr. Hanson, you've been working with the Sandstone Hospital here how long? Almost a year? It'll be a year, maybe, Dr.
Yeah,
Hilbert.
it's been about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say last September was when we went live.
Oh, yeah, this wasn't all.
It's really fun being here and having this group together because usually they're seeing each other by video and don't get to see each other in person. So,
Like a team.
yeah, right, yeah, so it's really, really neat. Thanks, Mary Beth.
Go ahead and advance this slide. So I'll start out with just a declaration of the problem. Annually, national stroke statistics tell us that upwards of 800,000 people are going to experience a new or recurrent stroke in the U.S., the fifth leading cause of death, leading cause of long-term disability. So if you die, very often with significant disability, many people will say to me, I'd rather die than have a stroke. So it's a really life-changing experience for people. As 7 million Americans who are stroke survivors, 30% permanently disabled. So, and huge cost to society and to patients themselves, to our hospital systems. Next slide. In Minnesota, 2.2% of adults reported ever having a stroke in their lifetime, so more than 90,000 people at any given time. 5% of all deaths due to stroke, fifth leading cause of death in the state as well. 12,000 hospitalizations for acute stroke events. Next slide. But there does appear to be some urban and rural disparity that speaks to why we're here today and talking about broadband and the need for connectivity. In this ethnicity and disease article, county-based population study was reported, 7-year time span, non-stroke belt states where stroke wasn't the biggest thing. That's more down in the southeastern part of the country. Residents of rural counties, though, in non-stroke belt states had a 12% higher risk of stroke death than those living in urban counties. And the postulated reasons were maybe some risk factor in socioeconomic issues, but also access to care. Next slide. So what about Minnesota specifically in stroke? More than a third of Minnesotans live more than 60 minutes from a primary stroke center where they can get this kind of care. Nearly 1 in 3 stroke victims in Minnesota present initially to a small rural hospital. That's huge. The rural population has a greater percentage of seniors at higher risk for stroke in Minnesota. So these are important statistics that again speak to why we have to do medical care differently than we're doing to get care to people who need it. Next slide. So I'm going to just kind of talk through stroke, and this gets to be more the medical side of it for me, and talk about the need for immediate treatment and why time and getting timely expertise is so critical. And then the team process and how important that is. It can't be just exporting care into a site. It has to be a team working together and developing expertise together. And then going to second mile, I'll talk to you about our future a little bit. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, just skim through, keep on
Okay, Dr.
advancing.
Hanson, can I ask you, you might be getting to this in your slide, but
Yeah.
it's the fifth most likely killer of Americans and Minnesotans, but my guess is it's probably one of the more preventable or intervenable of the top 5 or 10.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And what I'll show you too is that we have this wonderful care that I'm just, going to be talking about, that we now have rescue treatment, I call it.
Yeah.
Really 2 modes of rescue treatment. And we're not accessing it as a country, much less a state. In fact, Minnesota maybe does a little bit better than other states, but we're not taking advantage. So IVTPA specifically, an intravenous drug, so that's the treatment that can be given here in a timely fashion for people who need it, was studied way back in the mid-90s, showing an 11% absolute increase in cures. And if you take a pooling of all the studies of the drug and say, okay, well, cures are one thing, but what about the difference between walking and not walking? What if we just improve people? You only have to treat 2 to 3 people in order to see one person get that kind of improvement. So that is huge. That's an incredible treatment for such a devastating problem that before was kind of hopeless. Maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, a European study also showed us that we had a little more time, that the drug was going to be beneficial if we treated within 3 hours according to the NIH trial, but they extended the time window to 4.5. Next slide. But even within that time window, whether you're talking about 3 or 4.5 hours, you can see from this graphic that the beneficial effects or the number of people who will respond are dropping. So we don't really have 4.5 hours to get the drug in. We have as little time as it takes. As I indicated in that video, 15 minutes is a 5% reduction in dying from stroke. So, I tell my partners, my team members that, so that they're kind of mindful of their role in the team process and how critical it is that they get their part done in a timely fashion. Next slide. So are we delivering that? Well, national estimates of TPA use in a 2004 Medicare survey, 1% of all ischemic stroke patients that should be getting this kind of treatment early on in their course are getting it. The majority of people don't get it because they don't arrive to the hospital quickly enough to avail themselves of the therapy, but that's not universally true. There are other reasons they're not getting it that are systematic problems that we have. Now, if you take the American Stroke Association Get With The Guidelines work, these are hospitals across the country that are geared up, studying themselves, and interested in the problem of stroke. Still, only 6.5% of patients, of ischemic stroke patients in these populations, are getting TPA. And if you look at the Minnesota Department of Health Registry in 2011, 13%. But if you look at centers of excellence, now of which Sandstone is one, 20 to 30% of ischemic stroke discharges are getting treated. And what is the difference? It's how we organize together, how we get the care where we need it, when we need it. And that is absolutely the difference. Next slide. So are we doing that across the country? Are we getting better at delivering care? And the answer for urban hospitals, you can see the blue line showing a gradual increase over those years in use of TPA, but not so, nationally in rural centers. So critical need to make the same thing happen there. Next slide. How fast are we treating? The American Heart Association, to Get With The Guidelines work, showed that the mean door-to-needle time, from the time they enter the hospital door to the time we're getting the drug going, is 67 minutes. The NIH has recommended less than 60 minutes. Only 41% across the country in these hospitals are getting it within 60 minutes. And we know that there's lower in-hospital mortality, lower bleeding complication rate from the drug, and a higher rate of discharge to home if we get it early on in the course. And that goes to the process. Again, so what we're doing with Sandstone and others, we create a team process so that we can shorten that door to needle time. Next slide. So our early results with the telestroke code, I started with a hospital. I was actually not at Alina at the time, so this telemedicine practice has migrated with me wherever I've gone. And the first telestroke case, Blanco, what happened is they were going to work with us. This was a community project. We didn't know if this was going to be successful, and we had organized our team process, and the team was actually meeting on site, and we hadn't really gone live yet with the process. And someone came into the ER and said, we've got a stroke patient in the ER. And I said, well, let's connect up. I know we're not live yet, but let's do it. And so we connected up, and I took my temperature before I got on video and thought, okay, would I treat this patient with the story they're giving me by phone? Nah, it sounded too mild, wasn't sure it was stroke, that sort of thing. I would have made a very conservative decision. The treatment offers some risk, so we have to be careful with it. But I got up on video, immediately saw the pattern that me as a neurologist, I'm going to be looking for. And it was an easy decision. It was an easy decision in that case, and that sold me on this right away. That was my very first case. So the other thing that I learned with my first partner in Blanco was that I could get up to the 20% of getting patients treated if I only got into the stroke code faster. I was not doing that at my own hospital, Methodist Hospital at the time. I was struggling to treat, double digits, 12%, 14% some months, that sort of thing. It was just not possible for me to get into my own hospital quickly enough that I could be in there and making that quick decision. So there was this tendency to handle things over the phone if we could. Realized right away I needed at my own hospital as well so that I can be in the beginning of the stroke code. Next slide. So I moved from that system to another system, and can you just advance it one more time? Yeah, there you go. And what I learned is two things. One, if I use telestroke at my own hospital for off hours where I don't go running down to the ER, I just video into the ER, I'm treating faster. So you can see the graphic showing the drop in door to needle at that hospital once we started telestroke. And then also the percent of all ischemic stroke discharges jumped up where I wanted. I finally got up to where my partner Blanco was. So next slide. So the philosophy of our practice is this, and I'm becoming increasingly convinced that we need to spread this beyond just stroke, but to other things as well. That, the usual way of doing things is an ED physician triages things, and then they might speak with a neurologist over the phone, and then a primary care admits the patient, and then the neurologist sees the patient the next day. And in most metro hospitals, that is really what is happening. In our practice, we believe that we belong in the ER. 25% of our time is spent in our own ER or somebody else's ER with our telemedicine practice. And we want to be a full partner with the emergency physician so that they're helping us to handle the other medical issues while we're helping to manage the stroke problem. Next slide. Next slide. So, okay, now you need to just advance. Sorry, I don't know why I did this. So this is the original NIH trial, and we thought when this drug was approved for use for stroke in 1996, we thought this is easy. In fact, we did a Minnesota-wide project where we went out with 30 different hospitals and said, is this treatment safe in the community, and are we using it? And we found it was safe, but we were working with this recipe that came directly from the NIH trial, which excluded a bunch of people from treatment. And then we thought it was a straightforward decision as well. You look through these criteria, they meet or they don't meet. A stroke is easy to recognize, right? Anybody can recognize a stroke across the room. And you do a CAT scan and you make sure it's not a hemorrhage in the brain, and then you give drug. That's it. Well, it's not so easy. I learned, by finally, as a neurologist in 1996, I had to show up in the ER. So I started seeing what the ER docs, my colleagues, were seeing all the time. Next slide. So what's changed? Well, the time window for IVTPA has been extended to 4.5 hours since that study reported. intra-arterial treatment, or going up with a catheter like we were describing in the video, has been added to the mix. Changes in treatment criteria with new data about the safety profile, treating, for example, mild and rapidly improving stroke. We used to, in the NIH trial, they said, you know, if they're rapidly improving, that's a warning sign of stroke. So that's not a stroke happening, that's a warning sign, and we don't want to expose them to this drug. So that was within the original criteria. But what we know now is that people who come with mild and rapidly improving stroke, they aren't necessarily going to improve all the way. In fact, a third of them leave the hospital to some other facility instead of home because of disability and things they have to rehab from. So that knocked out a chunk of patients that we didn't treat before, and now we can treat. But a very uncomfortable decision for an ER doctor to make. I'm not sure if this is significant enough to expose them to this treatment. Multimodal imaging, and then improvements in triage. So I'm going to go over some of these things in a little more detail. Go ahead. So first of all, the treatment options. The IV treatment that we give at the bedside, that we can give here at Sandstone, is one thing, but then the intra-arterial treatment, that's only going to be available at tertiary centers. Requires some mobilization to get that treatment going. So there's that is where there's a large clot in a larger artery, and IVTPA, you give IVTPA, but if it's unsuccessful, you go up with a catheter and you try to remove the clot. Next slide. Originally, we were working with data that suggested that that particular treatment opened arteries really well. It opened large arteries better than the IVTPA. So maybe one of the major arteries that gets blocked, middle cerebral artery, that can take out an area of brain like this, it opens up, IVTPA opens it up maybe 40% of the time. And now with some of the newer technologies, it was opening it up 80 to 90% of the time. That's got to be good, right? Well, the information we were working with just told us that it opened arteries, not that the patients got better. And so just in the last 4 years or so, we've gotten these 5 trials that have told us, if you start with IVTPA and then you go to mechanical thrombectomy, if it's a large artery problem, you are getting a lot more benefit than IVTPA alone clinically. That is, the patient looks better too, not just the x-ray. And so now it's standard of care. It used to be kind of on the experimental edge. But notice that it's combined therapy versus TPA alone that these studies are saying. So we still need the IVTPA to happen here. We can't just ship everybody to the Twin Cities or to wherever there's interventional treatment for a couple reasons. One, because we don't have evidence that the intra-arterial treatment alone is the right thing to do. But the other thing is that 60 to 70% of them are not going to need the intra-arterial treatment. It's a smaller artery, and we can't get there with a catheter. So we need the treatment here to start. We have to start here, and then we have to work as a team for those large artery problems where we need to go up with a catheter afterwards. And when I say work as a team, that means, you know, we're figuring things out here so that I can mobilize my team over here. So by the time they helicopter in, we're all ready for them, and we go straight into the operating room scene and take care of it. Next slide. I just kind of went through this. Go ahead. Next slide. So here's a typical case. Young woman with sudden onset speech difficulty, right face, arm, and leg paralysis. She had what I call a clot sign on her CAT scan, which is this thing right here, this white thing. That's clot sitting in the artery. So I didn't even have to do any additional imaging to figure that out. I knew right away what was going on. That's a long piece of clot. The IVTPA I knew was not going to open up that. There's, okay, the diagnostic work. So why the heck this stroke occurred, and how do I prevent another one? Many of those patients could stay here, adding to the hospital expertise here by, you know, having us come in and the non-urgent stroke work as well, where maybe they arrive late for the rescue treatment. We still need the diagnostic workup, and the tools are here. Why not provide the consultation so the patient and the family with them can stay close to home for their evaluation. Also, the last point there, teleneurology, we're calling it, so all the other neurological emergencies that occur in the ER require
require help. We've been discovering that there's a lot of things that kind of show up in the stroke code process, whether they belong there or not, because the ER needs some guidance with it, and we're happy to do that, but we're going to start to formally do it and try to develop that. It requires some formulation of the exam to meet the patients, but we're up to that. And then the way we're working with other systems, another couple of places. There's 3 sites. The 3 sites with the darker spots are where we're kind of developing what we call mini hub concept. Our philosophy of doing telemedicine that they're supporting care will make it based in the community. So we're working with each of those 2 sites, Duluth, Hilliard, and then South Dakota, in order to develop their skill set to manage patients. Maybe they don't have the quaternary kind of care that we do, but they have some pieces of tertiary care that they can offer. So we try to keep patients close to home whenever we can. So specifically, with maybe patients with Sandstone that are essential patients, if they require a larger hospital care and it's appropriate, up they go to Duluth so that they stay within the essential system and are a little closer. I just give you this map of stroke mortality in our rural region to show you how that matches up with where we've targeted, where we're serving with telestroke. So stroke mortality is higher in rural areas in western Wisconsin there, and the South Dakota area where we're working, and maybe a little less so, but in northern Minnesota as well. So very quickly to wrap up, we view ourselves as really different. Like I say, we're not like all telestroke practices. There are differences in how different kinds of practices are organized and offer care. We are really involved, and we're not just look over your shoulder and you show me the exam and then I'll give you my opinion. We are in there directing the exam to suit our needs to be able to make the decisions, and also, taking history. And with that, we believe that, we're achieving these kinds of results. The percent treated compared to, once again, get with the guidelines hospitals. And this is rural sites, door to needle, 56 minutes, door to needle, get with the guidelines hospitals, 67 minutes in 2013. And then symptomatic intracerebral hemorrhage rate, the complications, much lower. It's twice as high that with guidelines hospitals that are purported to have expertise in stroke. I kind of talked to you. Yeah, go ahead. This is the team we're adding to our team, and I'll just, not to introduce all of these people, but there's 4 stroke clinicians in this picture, and our Amy Kessel, our coordinator. As we grow, we're going to be adding 4 more clinicians, and fully half of what we do as clinicians at United is telemedicine. So United and Alina have made this commitment that this is the way of the future. And so we aren't staffed up to serve United, we're staffed up to serve what we call our virtual hospital. So I throw this in there just for people to understand what this means financially. The cost effectiveness of hub and spoke telestroke network, the management of acute ischemic stroke, is an article that was published a few years ago, and a quote from there that I pull up to kind of help people understand what this means for the future and why we need to think about going that way. Is contrary to the common perception that a telestroke referral network poses a substantial financial burden on hospitals, this study revealed that it is likely to be a cost-saving strategy from the hospital's perspective, while also improving patient outcomes in terms of home discharges. To improve its generalizability, their model included the cost of maintaining round-the-clock coverage with stroke experts from the hub. So what they did in the body of the article is they looked at at different ways of doing this that I alluded to before. You can be a hub that you're in it for your hub. And you look at your referral hospitals as, you look at the spoke hospitals as your referral base so that you can grow your hub and grow your subspecialty work at the hub. That is beneficial to the hub. That is not beneficial to San. That's beneficial to the hub. In those kinds of cases, the way that it should be financially organized is that the hub should be paying the cost. Okay. There's a second model, which is specialist online kind of idea. So that's, you know, a group in Georgia is serving a moderate-sized hospital in Spokane, Washington, because they can't get even locum tenens to come in and do stroke work. And then you're hiring locums. Then the spoke should be paying for the cost of the care. So that's a whole different way of practicing, and that doesn't allow for the same in-hospital engagement. What we are is C, and that's the base case model where we get fully engaged in the hospital. In that kind of a case, we're trying to keep patients close to home when we can, to develop the expertise where we can. There's some things that have to transfer, but according to this article, if there's about a 30% transfer rate, it's financially beneficial to both the hub and the spoke. So just thinking about making this work and doing cost-effective care. And then if you think about the cost savings in, you know, you just connect up over video and you look at the patient and say, this is not a stroke, and you know you don't need to do a scan. And yes, the patient can be discharged home. Think of the cost savings instead of, you know, getting a helicopter to transfer the patient and 2 hospitalizations, the ER visit here and the hospitalization with United. So huge benefits and cost savings to the medical system in general. So, I think that's why I left that off. It's kind of part of the talk from this. Go ahead. Yep, that's
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. You know, I know we'll have some questions here, so let's go ahead and, yeah. Do you want to do that? Oh, well, we'll have questions for Dr. Hansen probably, and then, okay, yeah. Maybe just, yeah.
All right. I think people are stunned. I actually have a question. It's interesting to see your map of partnerships, you know, and how you built that out over the last couple of years. And I noticed that you have relationships in South Dakota, but not and yeah, and so I'm just interested. So, what is it that condition that most is important to develop those relationships? Is it personal relationships? Is it activity? You know, my entire practice, even just starting out in stroke neurology in general, has been if somebody else didn't want to do it, I did. And that's the way I developed my practice. Now stroke neurology is an established kind of practice. But I kind of went about it the same way, you know, where there was interest in working together and then a lot of developing relationships. For example, I worked with Essentia. We started working with Brainerd, and then Brainerd joined Essentia and said, you know what, you really need to talk to people. They're going to want to do this. And so we ended up talking to administration, and that's how our Essentia relationship developed. In South Dakota, we had just more of a phone relationship with folks in Aberdeen. They referred to us quite a bit, made flags and things like this out there. I got to tell you, the need is huge out there. It's huge. But we have issues. The reason we're not north is that, you know, we offer a certain level of expertise, and you can see how much work it takes to organize a team and develop practice. And right now, if even something close to what we offer can be offered at a hospital that's in between us and our partner, the patient, it gets flyover charges. So Medicare will pay for the hospital, but they won't pay for the health. And, you know, I had a couple of partners
we've been working with for years, and when that that had next move forward, we had solutions that got charged $5,000, and it was just can't do that to our neighbors anymore. And you know, I can tell you this that we've had two partners who do that and they call us and say, you know, they're sorry they did, they wish they could give that kind of care still, but they just wouldn't do it. So that's been a barrier to that part of the state. You know, we're trying to figure out some sort of workaround, but it's very difficult.
I'm going to have Maureen address issues of the other systems in the state that we're doing later on because of her expertise on the telemedicine task force that she serves on. Because I think, you know, we get one picture here, like kind of a interesting horizontal stripe and a little bit vertical, but there's other things happening, and I think you'll have a sense of that. So if there's questions about that, Maureen will take that later in her presentation.
Do you see this same public school model we're looking for other areas? I mean, it's really brilliant because to have a person in your calendar stay in Sandstorm, how would you move like this? Doing what you're doing, whereas you're sitting in a house, you can utilize at a much higher rate because you cover, you know, strokes are a common thing, but they're uncommon too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
within a small area, you know, across Minnesota, there's a lot of them, but in Sandstone, they probably, I don't know, one a week or something like that.
I think better organization for cardiac disease would be, you know, a prime example. I talked to some of my vascular surgery colleagues about, you know, vascular emergencies. They're interested in it as well. There is certainly in the outpatient side, there's a lot. You know, our expansion into teleneurology is for that reason as well. So yeah, I think we need to.
Well, the other thing that I hear, one of the things I'm from people, and one of the things that you hear is that they feel that sometimes that they're suffering sort of intellectual isolation because they're not around a lot of other. They're a surgeon. They may be the only surgeon in the hospital. They don't have a lot of other surgeons that they can talk to about the problem. And some stuff like surgery is hands-on. It has to be there. But some of these things like what you're doing where you're acting as a consultant, you can see where it would make it real easy to recruit doctors into, say, a metro area, but working in the very rural areas. So it's kind of a, you know, having your cake and eating it too, so to speak.
I think, yeah, and telemedicine is in the middle of it. That's part of the work that we talked about doing with Essentia, where, you know, St. Mary's in Duluth is developing a level of stroke expertise that can be more deeply partners so that we can learn from our stroke partners up in St. Mary's and they can learn from us. I think that'd be great. You know, so thinking just, you know, how we're organizing, that's what we'd like to see so that medicine becomes a bit more virtual and accessible to people.
Getting this out in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe this might be for both of you or for you just another time, but for those hospitals that are interested in telemedicine or any type of treatment, what have you seen are the biggest barriers to getting the technology in their hospital or the acceptance of it?
That might be to the hospital, just right here from the hospital itself. So I think
I'm not sure.
So maybe briefly, but then on the hospital.
Yeah, from my perspective, yeah, I think.
But even physicians, you know, I think that, you know, in local issues, even the physicians feel like it's a.
Let me just give you one example of one of the barriers. I mean, you're very much needed and wanted in South Dakota, but because of the cross-state problems to get it reimbursed for care, all kinds of workarounds to make that partnership work. So that's one example.
All right, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the presentation.